Welcome back, everybody. Unfortunately, we don't have any footage of this truck being worked on this week, but there's plenty of other footage where the students were working on a lot of other things. I'll also get on my soapbox at one point. Hope you enjoy this episode.
I'm taking out the crankshaft to replace the rear main seal. We need to cut off the excess where the ends of our seals meet. I'm pre-lubing the main bearing so we don't have a dry start.
After this, we'll be ready to set the crankshaft back in.
After the repair on this side panel, I'm wet sanding it to respray it.
Just like I did with the smaller gauges, I'm cutting the lenses out for our larger gauges. Since the bezels I made, I plan on painting chrome. We're experimenting with 3 different kinds of chrome paints to see which one I like best. I'm drilling holes in the brackets I made to mount my reservoir bottle. I'm painting the inside of my gauge housings chrome.
The intake plenum must be removed to gain access to the rear coils and plugs.
It's always a good idea to check the gap on the new plugs.
It's always a good idea to torque the spark plugs, especially on an aluminum head.
With the plugs and coils in place, it's time to put the plenum back on. It's best to use the proper torque sequence to torque the plenum.
Putting the air box back in place completes the job.
I always put it away on the front. Put it right here, hold it.
The new rotor is clean, and now I'm putting on the caliper bracket. I added anti-seize to the pad so they can slide freely onto the bracket.
Now the caliper goes on.
Next, the integral parking brake cable is getting put back on. I'm bleeding the 2 new calipers, and then it'll be time for a test drive.
You just saw Kevin tightening a wheel on a vehicle using one of these. This is a torque wrench, and it's the only tool that students at Hylton here are allowed to use to secure a wheel back onto a car. A lot of people in the industry will use these. These are called torque sticks. In my personal opinion, this is one of the worst tools ever conceived, and I'll explain why. I was on a blog site a little bit ago listening to some people back and forth, some of them technicians supposedly, arguing about how great these things are, and some people asking questions about them, but they were given all wrong information, unfortunately, and I did not get involved in it. But one guy went as far as to say that a wheel that's too tight is better than a wheel that's too loose, and I would argue that point. I'm actually going to with you in just a little bit. First, I want to explain how these things actually work. The idea behind them is that force applied on one end from an impact gun will achieve a prescribed amount of torque on the other end based on the diameter of the shaft. So it's simple algebra and physics. This one is specifically designed for 80 pound-feet of torque, providing an input from here. But here's the problem. Most people don't use them correctly. The way you're supposed to use these, if they bother to read the directions, is you're only supposed to have 90 to 100 psi at an impact gun, or actually at the gun itself. And then also, you're not supposed to be using an impact gun that's rated at more than 250 pound-feet of torque. Now first, to the air pressure side, I don't know of any technician that regulates their guns down to 90 to 100 psi. They're all using full shop air. That can be anywhere from 160 to 200 pounds, depending on the shop. The other thing is with the impact guns. The electric guns that we use here at Hylton, these are rated at 600 pound-feet of torque. So if we put a torque stick on the end of this, we're already at almost 2.5 times the rating of that torque stick if it were being used correctly. And I don't know of anyone that's using a gun that only does 250 pound-feet of torque. Some of them are capable of producing in the 800 and 900 pound-feet of torque range, which means they're definitely over-tightening. Some people think that no matter how much pressure they put on this end, it'll only be 80 here. Nothing could be further from the truth. Again, it's algebra and physics. 90 to 100 psi on this end will make 80 on this end. If you're overdoing it, then it's going to make the wheel too tight. Now, a lot of guys out there on those sites that I've seen in past, not just today, but in passing, they say, well, I can get it to within this, and I can make it 100 psi or 100 pounds of pressure. I can do that. No, you can't. Nobody can. All the people on the planet, no one can do it. Maybe you can get lucky and hit one out of 50,000, but you're not going to get them exactly. No manufacturer has a torque spec that says 80 pound-feet of torque plus or minus 150. It's exactly 80, and that's what they want. Not 79, not 81. So using a torque wrench is actually the only way that you can get that exact torque. So the people that argue that, I'll take that challenge. You can't do it. You're almost tightening them, over-tightening them every single time. Now, for the guy that made the statement about he'd rather have them too tight than too loose, here's my argument. I'd rather have it too loose, and here's why. If a wheel's a little bit loose, I don't care if it's aluminum or steel, I'm probably going to hear it. And if I don't, I'm going to feel a vibration, I'm going to pull over, I'm going to check that out. If a wheel is too tight, generally you've pulled the threads or the studs can be cracked. That wheel's going to come off at a high rate of speed. It's not just going to fall off sitting in a parking lot. So I would much rather hear the noise of a loose one that I know I can take care of and fix versus one that I'm just driving down the road on a highway and the wheel just falls off. So only use torque wrenches, and I'm speaking to my past graduates as well. You know how I feel about those torque sticks. They should never, ever, ever be used by anyone. And if anyone out there watching this thinks that they can do it every single time and get it to exactly what the manufacturers want, 100%, you can't do it. It's impossible. And it's easy to check, by the way. So again, make sure you don't let anyone use torque sticks or impact guns when they're putting the wheels back on. Only do it with a torque wrench by hand.
We need to remove the complete harness from the old engine to put it onto the replacement engine.
That should be it, just this one right here, and then this whole front thing comes off, I think.
There are many brackets and clips to contend with, so you can get it back together the same way it came off. As well as removing all of the cut electrical lines from the replacement engine, the hoses have to be removed as well.
This engine came off a manual transmission car. It is going into a car with an automatic transmission, so we had to take the flywheel and clutch off.
Because this engine came from a standard transmission vehicle, we have to take out the pilot bushing from the crankshaft.
Edmar is using a blind hole puller to capture the bushing from the inside. Edmar is transferring the flex plate onto the replacement engine for the torque converter to bolt to. Edmar's just running these up lightly to seat them. We'll put a final torque on them when he's done.
I'm holding the crankshaft while he torques the flex plate.
The guys are mating the transaxle to the replacement engine. They're checking to make sure that the dowel pins are lined up before they install any bolts.
This component on our replacement engine is broken. We are replacing it with the one from the old engine.
And 3, 2, 1, go!
Take the front from the rubber.
And take off.
I got you. Come on, guys, let's go!
Go turn off. Gasket off. Pull the pry bar.
Ori. Yo, you got it to the old one?
Let go. Just the same way.
Number 6.
Show.
There's a cut rings! Wait.
Just the same crane.
Where's the gas? Hey, where's the gas? Lift it.
Just the same crane. Just the same crane.
That's piston going in.
Hey, you gotta use the
How many said 15 foot-pounds?
No, you
left the. Never mind.
Spider car.
Yes.
Just hands on headbolts.
Put it over back to the power in.
Next time on Bulldog Builds, with the crank back in the 48 engine, we'll be ready to start putting pistons in. The student should have everything transferred over on the Honda Civic engine and ready to put back in the car. And we should have the electrical problem straightened out on that truck. See you next week.